Hello to all of our balance seekers everywhere in the world, USA, Costa Rica, and of course, the Philippines. Welcome to the very last episode of the Logout Sessions. Pero hindi naman to series finale. Season finale lang naman. Anyways, welcome to the season finale of the Logout Sessions! What is up, guys? Welcome to our podcast, the show where we talk about anything under and beyond the BPO umbrella. Walang censor, walang limits, and walang filter, even though all of those things are actually the opposite of what I just said. Now, since this is the very last episode of the season, I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in on the past episodes of the season. Thank you for laughing with us. Thank you for, empathizing with us. A big factor in the BPO industry is empathy. So, kaya niyo yan, guys. And I just want to say, a huge thank you for everyone who watched the show. It was really fun doing this for all of you guys. And I hope to have made you guys laugh after a long night at work. Or a long day at work, kahit day shift or night shift pa man yan. So thank you, and we hope to see you again soon. Now, before we begin, I just want to give a shout out to ClearSource, especially those working at home. Hello. Kung palagaut na kayo, please, tune in and just talk with us for the next 30 minutes. Of course, I also want to give another shout out to all of our ClearSource leaders. Thank you guys for guiding us our way to the growth that we want to reach. It's amazing. It wouldn't be the same without you guys. So, this episode, especially for this season finale, is about work-life balance. We all want to achieve it, and we all dream of hitting that right spot. Sometimes it's too much work, sometimes it's way less work than we all like to admit. But, ultimately, we all want to reach that sweet spot of just, equal weights on two different worlds. Now, since this is our last episode of the season, I thought we'd end it in a bang. So, ladies and gentlemen, ClearSource's co-founder himself and self-proclaimed leadership aficionado, Nate Spears. Hi, Nate.
Thank you,
Josh. For
being
being on the show. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you for telling me the truth. So, I heard that you just recently came back from Vietnam. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We went out and we rode motorcycles through the mountains for 5 days, and it was my first time spending any real time on a motorcycle. I had a little bit of fear of motorcycles because the first time I ever rode one, I crashed it. And so I was trying to overcome that in going on this trip with Rob and his son Christian, and I was doing great. We were climbing all these mountains and riding all over these rocks and dirt roads and all over the place. And on the last day, we had rain. And I was coming down the road at maybe 45 or 50 kilometers an hour, and the road was slick. And you'll guess what happened next? I ate it. So it shredded up all my rain gear. We broke the clutch handle. I've got scraped up arms. But you know what? 5 minutes later, I was back on the bike, headed down the mountain. So it was, for me, an amazing experience. I'm just glad I didn't get injured.
Yeah, I wish I could have ridden a bike. But, more on that later. So, without further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Ready?
So, you've been in the BPO industry for quite some time now. In fact, I would say more than a decade or almost 2 decades.
I have been in the BPO industry for 28 years.
So more than 2 decades.
That's right.
So, in your experience, how would you describe the entire thing? How would you describe everything from your first call to where we are now?
I would describe this experience as being what you make of it.
Right.
So I got my first job doing outbound cold call telemarketing when I was 16 years old. Now, if you've never done telemarketing, you're calling people up and trying to sell them something. And usually what you get is angry responses. People don't want to talk to you. They're mad that you bothered them. And so you're getting hung up on and sworn at and yelled at all the time. And you might think that doesn't sound like a very fun job.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I had fun talking with all sorts of different people. I had fun with the people that I worked with and made a lot of friends. And I'm one of those people who believes that whether you can like your job, or whether you believe you can like your job, or whether you believe you cannot, you are correct. And so I had the mindset of loving what I did and making the most out of it. What did that look like for me? I kind of acted like a game show host, similar kind of to what you're doing in hosting this podcast. I just had fun with customers, right? So I would really just laugh it up and talk all sorts of things with them in order to have a good time, because whether I got a sale or not, hey, at least I could have fun if I wanted to.
See, that's a mindset that I adopted as well when I was an agent. But it was more of the opposite side. You know, while you laughed it up, I was not afraid to talk back. But here's the thing. The nature of interactions are often seen as a measure that you need to follow as an agent. So, you know, in terms of achieving that balance between work and not work, meaning, you know, that saying of when you love what you do, it feels like you're not working a day of your life.
Right.
What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about the measures that need to be hit as an agent? Is it like all that important above all else, in your opinion?
So one of the things I teach our leaders to focus on is first recognizing that everybody is here for something that they want outside of work. Right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, there's a reason that you're coming to work and you're getting a paycheck and you're going to save up your money and you're going to do what with it? And whatever that thing is probably something that you want because you think it's going to make you happy, right? And so when we look at what we're doing here, it's recognizing that the things that we do are going to help us get the places we want to go, the things we want to have, the life that we want to build for ourselves. And that starts to give our work meaning. That's only part of the equation though. The next part of it is understanding that the best way to love your job is to create exceptional customer experiences. So one of the things I talk about when I welcome new hires to the company is this idea of throwing a surprise party for somebody else. Ooh. Right? It's a lot of work. You're putting together the decorations, the handa, the food, all the stuff in order to throw a surprise party for someone you care about. And you're just waiting for that moment of the big reveal to see their reaction. And sometimes people cry or they're surprised, right? And how does that feel? For the person throwing the party, it feels amazing because all that hard work is paying off in that moment of the big surprise, and it feels great. And that's how I see creating exceptional customer experiences. And I think if somebody looks at the work that we do and they say, you know what, call center work is a life-sucking, monotonous slog of a job. All I hear is that they don't know how to create exceptional customer experiences, because if they did, they would love what they do because it feels great to make people's day.
I see. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, you know, the notion of call centers being a life-sucking, monotonous job, because to me, how I saw it back, especially during my time as an agent, was that a lot of these agents, including me, admittedly, didn't really hit the right spot or the right balance that they want to achieve with their lives. Mostly, they would just come to work and then do the work that they do. And then when they go home, they just sleep off the work that they did and then get ready for work the next day.
Yeah.
So common misconceptions I would usually hear about that is that's a common misconception, you know, BPO being life-sucking and monotonous. So in that case, even though I enjoyed it, a lot of people didn't. What do you say about that?
I think for me, it comes down to your purpose, right? Like, why are you here? There's a really great Japanese term called ikigai.
Ikigai, yeah, I know that. I heard about that.
Yeah, so it's what is your purpose in life? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? How is it that you find fulfillment? And what you do then is you start to see the work that you're doing as a vehicle to carrying out that purpose, right? And once you now have a reason, then it becomes meaningful, it can become exciting, it can become something you love doing. But think about it the opposite. The opposite is, there's no reason for me to be here. I'm only here to make enough money to pay my bills. That's not meaningful. That just feels like it's never gonna end. And so you're just coming in, making enough, paying your bills, and you're just subsisting. You're not building anything, you're not growing, you're not creating things in your life that are going to give you joy. And so if you change all that, you start to realize what your purpose is outside of work, and you see your work as a way to achieve that purpose. Now it's got meaning. Now it's exciting because you're building something that's for you.
That is a great way to, you know, phrase that, because that's the mindset that I try to adopt with the work that I do right here in ClearSource. Everything I do has a purpose, and there is a purpose of me being here, especially here hosting the show. Hi guys. So yeah, that's a really good way of phrasing it. And that's really enlightening, by the way. But here's one thing that I just, that I always think of, especially with BPO. While everyone has a purpose, one of the sad things about the BPO industry as a whole is that a lot of our leaders just put the KPIs above everything and everyone else. Mm-hmm. So as a leader yourself in the BPO industry, what do you say, or what do you think about the notion of KPIs being much more important than everything else?
Yeah, the KPIs are just indicators, right? Mm-hmm. That's what that term means. It's a key performance indicator. And another indicator that a lot of people are familiar with is like the check engine light on your dashboard in your car.
Yeah.
And so if you're driving down the road and the check engine light comes on, that's a clue to you that you need to take your car into the mechanic. They're going to hook up their computer, read the codes, maybe do some digging around in the engine to try and figure out what's going on, right? And so KPIs are very similar. If we're missing a target, that's not a reason to get frustrated or mad at anybody. It's just an opportunity to dig deeper and figure out what's going on so that we can help that person be successful. But the problem is we have a bad relationship with KPIs, because at a lot of BPOs, what they do is, without using real leadership, they rely on sticks to go around and scare people into doing the things that need to be done. And they say, if you don't get these numbers in line, then we're going to write you up, we're going to fire you. Nobody wants to operate in that kind of an environment. And so what happens is they start seeing KPIs as the enemy. And what we need to do is we need to recognize that the KPIs are just an indicator. And it's an opportunity for the leader to dig deep, figure out what's going on so that they can help that person be successful and go where they want to go.
Yeah. That just made me remember my time as an agent. Even though I enjoyed it, the management was pretty, icky about the numbers that they need to be reached. But, comparing that experience to my experience now, especially after talking to several agents and several leadership staff or team managers, I can say that this has been a very good indicator of balance, if I'm making sense. They don't look at the numbers with that much vigor. They look at it as an opportunity to identify points of improvement for the agents, and they really help out their agents. So shout out to all of the TLs here in ClearSource. But yeah, that's basically what I've observed so far, and so far it's been a great observation.
Yeah. I think that the thing that leaders need to be focused on more than the KPIs is figuring out what that person wants to accomplish in their life. And if the focus of their conversations with that agent are to help them get where they want to go, the KPIs tend to take care of themselves, right? When you focus on the KPI, you're not really fixing any of the underlying issues. I'll use average handle time, for instance.
Right.
Let's say, for instance, somebody has high average handle time, and I go to them and I say, get down your average handle time or I'm going to write you up. Well, now I'm incentivizing that person to take shortcuts, maybe even hang up on a few customers in order to get the right numbers to stop getting yelled at. That doesn't solve my problem. I'm not creating a better customer experience with that kind of environment. And so I say to our leaders, don't ever utter the words average handle time to your people. There's no use for that. Instead, sit down with them, listen to some of their longest calls, figure out what's getting in the way, and then help them be successful by coaching them through the things they need to be doing to create an exceptional customer experience. And what'll happen is as they become experts, their average handle time will naturally come down to a point where they're doing just what they need to create that great customer experience without wasting the customer's time.
I see. So one thing that I love about ClearSource, especially with, in comparison to most other companies, is that not only do you promote a healthy work-life balance lifestyle. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You guys also really embody the core values that you guys uphold. One of my favorite core values in the company is happy and healthy. And the fact that you guys allow me to be as creative as can be, allow the entire team, or basically any other team, to be as creative as can be when solving problems. You know, instead of the usual ABC 1, 2, 3 approach. That to me is what makes the happy and healthy core value one of my favorites. In that case, kala mo in-interrogate, diba? What would you say is, in terms of balance, would be your favorite core value of ClearSource, and how do you embody it as best as you can?
Sure, I'm right there with you, Josh. Core value number 5, happy and healthy, my favorite core value. We say in describing it that we choose well, we live well, right? And for a long time, what that meant for me was doing things in my life that would give me the capacity to bring my best self to the people that I care most for. So when I think about the things that I do in my life to create that capacity, it's things like getting enough exercise. I'm a long distance runner and a cyclist, and so that's how I get my exercise. It's eating healthy. It's getting enough rest. And I want to talk about that for just a moment, because when I come to the Philippines, my schedule is 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., just like the rest of the folks who work here. And I have a lot of empathy for those people who work overnight. Now, I get to go to my hotel room, which has nice blackout curtains and an air conditioner, is very quiet, and I can sleep during the afternoon. But what about those employees of ClearSource who are working overnight and then have to go home and take care of kids or deal with noisy neighbors, right? My heart goes out to those people, and they especially need to be extra vigilant about ensuring that they have time and space for rest. Because if you get exhausted, you're wiped out mentally, physically, emotionally, you're not going to be able to bring your best self to this work or to the people that you care most for. And so in my mind, by prioritizing, we talk a lot about balance, right?
Yeah.
Work-life balance. By prioritizing life, prioritize your health, prioritize your mental wellness and your emotional wellness. If you make that the priority, work takes care of itself.
It does.
And so I'm not a huge believer in work-life balance. I'm a huge believer in life first, and then let work take care of itself, because you'll create the capacity to do an amazing job at work if you first prioritize doing those things in your life that will create that capacity for you. The one thing I'll add to that list, I talked about eating healthy, exercise, getting enough rest. I would add to that list doing those things that give you joy. And so you talked about my motorcycle trip to Vietnam. That was an amazing experience, right? To just go out and ride around and spend time with Rob and Christian. And so for me, there was a lot of that trip that was amazing. It was beautiful, things I'd never seen before, things I'd never eaten before. And to have that experience, that was recharging for me because it gave me joy. And so when I think about the things in my life, whether it's playing with my kids or doing the sports that I like to do, or sometimes just driving my car down the canyon, those things give me joy, they recharge me, and they allow me to bring my best self to work. And so by prioritizing those things first, the other stuff takes care of itself.
Thank God that you were able to mention things that bring you joy, because that's one thing that I've loved to have, especially since working here at ClearSource, is that I get the time that I want to be able to do the things that I love. Especially when I'm out of work, usually I visit my friends down south and we just jam, you know, whether it be a cappella or playing my guitar and everything, we just jam. I really love, you know, taking the time to really practice my music and just building up complex harmonies and just really think or just do anything music theory related. So yeah, that's one thing about your Vietnam trip. But what else do you like to do out of work, you know, just to get the whole workness out of it?
So I love to travel. This year, in addition to Vietnam, I've spent time in Peru, Mexico, Costa Rica, here in the Philippines. I've been to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And just the opportunity to go and experience different cultures, see different things, try different foods has been amazing. I also am a musician. I've been playing the cello since I was a kid, and a few years ago I took up the guitar. And so music is a huge part of my life. I love going to concerts, and that's something that I do frequently. And so any chance that I get to participate in or listen to live music, those are things that spark joy for me.
How often you do, you mentioned that you were a musician. How often do you do music?
As much as I can. So my busy schedule means that I don't get to play as much as I would like, but I still have my cello, I still have my guitar, and I still play them when I'm able to. One of the things I'm looking forward to doing in my home is building out a music room with things like pan, what do they call it? It's the pan drums and the other drums and different things like that, so that my kids, I have a 5-year-old, can come and just play around with different things and experience what it would be like to create new sounds and new music.
Well, my dream, and it's not exactly a music room, but I just really want one of those like pedal effects that allow you to loop your voice so that you can, you know, harmonize with it as much as you can. That to me is a dream.
I love it.
But you know, that's one. It's great that you guys that we have all those hobbies, because it really allows us to prioritize life, as you put it. Because, you know, it's not all about work and it's not all about business in general. But, you know, for most leaders, it would be that work would be their priority. You know, it's one of those sad common realities, I would say, in my opinion. How do you think leaders should influence their teams or the people that work under them to get the balance that they deserve, to get the opportunity to prioritize life instead of life in the office?
Yeah, I think it comes down to what is the purpose of those weekly one-on-one meetings, right? So if your leader is meeting with that team member and they're having a conversation, it's just like you said earlier.
Yeah.
Are the KPIs the focus and that's what the conversation is about? Or is it about finding out what that person's dream is, identifying the milestones to achieve that dream, and holding them accountable to making meaningful progress toward achieving those milestones on a weekly basis, right? If that becomes the focus of the conversation, the KPIs take care of themselves, because that person's excited about their job because they see how they benefit when they do well at work. And it changes the relationship with that leader, because now they see that leader as somebody who cares about them and is more interested in ensuring that they're living a happy and healthy life than they are about these KPIs. Again, the KPIs take care of themselves when people are happy and healthy. So make that the priority.
Yeah. Shout out to all of our leaders. Kidding. But, you know, it's hearing you talk about all these things, it just makes me wish that I had you as my boss back when I was an agent, because that would have really, that would have changed a lot of stuff for me. It wouldn't have, you know, decreased my enjoyment, but, you know, it would have changed perspective. I don't want to ask though, you mentioned that you, as a leader, you know, one must schedule or one must regulate one-on-one talks with each of their team. How, if I may ask, or not really how, what was the most profound one-on-one talk that you can remember with any of your team?
With anybody that I was leading?
I guess, yeah.
Absolutely. So when I think about the conversations that I've had that were most memorable for me, one person in particular sticks out to me, and it's someone who reported to me back in Utah. This was a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And his goal was to be able to move out on his own. So he was in his 30s. He was still living at home with his mom and aunt. Wasn't very happy about it, wasn't a good home situation, and yet he had bad credit and was struggling with, how do I get out and move out on my own? And what happened is we started creating these goals that would create a path for him to be able to achieve that dream. And I'll tell you, as we worked through it, one of the most fulfilling moments of my career was when he was able to achieve his dream and he invited me to the housewarming party. Right?
Oh, that's so nice.
And so you see it in action, right? You see it in action where somebody's actually making that dream come true. And that's the best part of leadership, right? So people who think, man, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm frustrated with my job as a leader, you're focusing on the wrong things. Help people make their dreams come true. Your work becomes fun and your results will be better.
So what should leaders focus on?
They should focus first and foremost on getting to know their person well enough so that when they ask them, what is it that you want to achieve in life, that they get an honest answer, and then they consistently follow up on that specific dream, right? So if that's really what they want, great, we're gonna put plans and processes in place in order to help you achieve that. And each week I'm gonna say, Did you do what you said you would do last week? Are we making progress towards that goal? And after 2 or 3 of those meetings, that person's going to realize, hey, my leader is serious. They really want me to see this happen. I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let myself down. So I'm going to take the steps that I need to make that dream a reality.
But, I would say one of the challenges that leaders face is that they have so much under their team that, it could be a bit difficult for them to find a balance between, advising member A versus member B versus member C. So what would be your advice to leaders, that want to see the best in their people, but are having some difficulties in doing so due to the number of people that they have?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of prioritizing the activities that are going to yield the most effective results. So one of the things I'm big on talking about is the difference between efficiency and efficacy. Efficiency is taking the easiest path possible. So if I send out an email to my team with some instructions, that's efficient, right? But is it effective? And so when we think about efficacy, it's harder. It takes more time, one-on-one, to help people be successful, but it's going to yield a more effective outcome. And so as you're talking about how should leaders prioritize their time, it's going through and saying, what are all of the tasks that I'm doing throughout the week? Are they creating value, right? As I look at the time that I'm spending on the things that I'm doing, is it making a difference or not? Stop doing the stuff that's not making a difference and focus on what you can do to be the most effective. That first starts with building the relationship, number one. This person has to want to be led by you in order for them to be successful. And unless they want to be led by you, no coaching conversation is going to help them be successful. It first starts with them wanting to be led by you. Now, once that's in place, you can have those coaching conversations because they're ready to learn. They're ready to do what's needed to be done in order to help them be successful. So it's getting things in the right order. Too often I see leaders doing lots of coachings, but the person doesn't want to be led by that leader because the relationship is not there. They're just wasting their time. So you talk about, hey, they've got a big team. How do we make sure that they're focused on the right things? It's prioritizing first the relationship and then doing the things to help that person be successful.
That's really good. Right, Nate. So thank you so much for being on the show so far. I am so sorry about that snafu that we just had. We're not going to talk about the snafu.
No.
So yeah, before we continue, I just want to do a little quick game in honor of this month as well, which is called Buwan ng Wika. So I'm going to say a sentence or phrase, and you try to translate it into Tagalog. Because not a lot of people here know he is actually pretty fluent in some Filipino dialects, mainly Cebuano and Ilonggo,
yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to say a phrase and you say it in your best Tagalog.
I will try my best with Tagalog.
Or you know what? Let's just make it easier. Let's translate it to prove to the people here that you are indeed multilingual.
Okay.
Translate the phrase into your Ilonggo or into your best Cebuano.
I'm ready.
Okay, ready? So, first phrase is... Oh my God, first phrase? Sorry.
Diyos ko.
First phrase is... Let's go get a cup of coffee.
Kato na lang ta para magkuha sang coffee.
Is that Cebuano or Ilonggo?
That's Ilonggo. Yes. Magakadto kita para makabakal sang coffee. Yeah.
See, I told you. It's so cool. It's so good. Especially when you hearing it out loud. Okay. Next phrase. Because I'm Cebuano and I can't speak the language.
Okay. So you want Cebuano or Ilonggo? Because that was Ilonggo. We'll do Cebuano.
We'll do Cebuano.
Next. Go ahead.
Next. Okay. Hey, can we talk for a sec?
Maka-story bata?
Okay. Do you know the way to the beach?
Kabaw ka kung asang beach?
Do you know the way to the airport?
Kabaw ka kung saan pagadto sa airport?
Hey, so, do people like me?
Ganahan ba ang mga tao nako?
Okay, last would be, hey, I heard some stuff back at the water cooler. Can you fill me in on that gossip?
Nakabati ako chismis dito sa water cooler. Unsa man ang giingon nila?
Can you say that in Ilonggo?
Nagahambal sila sa mga chismis dito sa water cooler. Nakabati man ko. Ano man ang siling nila bala?
Thank you so much. Oh my god. Seriously, guys, if you're here, it's pretty different from watching this one, because if you're here and you see it, you're gonna be like, oh my god. Okay, all right. So back to serious. Sorry, that was just like a huge segue from everything. Okay, so back to the fray. So to you, you've mentioned stuff about like prioritizing life over work, and why it's important that leaders should look into the welfare of their people, to promote a happy and healthy lifestyle. So my question to you is, why is balance important? Like, why is it something that should be prioritized over the reason why you work or something like that?
Yeah, you've heard the phrase, we don't live to work, we work to live. And I think it's understanding that when you prioritize life over work, again, everything works. And so I know that Tony Robbins is a big fan of the idea of work-life integration. And I think especially for those of us that work at home, there's a lot of work-life integration. And one of the things that I've appreciated most about working from home is the chance that I have during my lunch breaks or in between meetings to go play with my kid for a few minutes or do a quick chore, maybe do the laundry or whatever. And I have found that to be great, because then at the end of the day, when I'm finished with work, I don't need to then spend the rest of my evening doing chores or whatever else. I can just go have fun with the kids. And so I think for me, it's work-life integration and finding ways to make life part of work and work part of life, so that it doesn't feel so much segmented or segregated between those two parts of your life. And one of the things I think people try and do is they try and bring a work self to work, and then at home there's somebody completely different. I'm one person. You're gonna get the same Nate at home as you will at work, because that's just who I am. I'm not trying to split between two different personalities.
Yeah.
And so I think focusing on just bringing your whole self to your work, to your home life every day is critical. Whatever that looks like, just be vulnerable, put it out there.
What was the moment that shifted for you in your almost 30 years of work experience?
Yeah.
What was the moment that, turned on the light bulb in your mind and was like, hey, I don't live to work?
Yeah.
When was the moment for that?
I got an opportunity a few years ago to go watch speaker and author Dave Crenshaw. He was putting on a seminar for an organization in Utah called Entrepreneurs Organization. And so there I am, I'm sitting in this seminar, and he says, you entrepreneurs, you guys have this habit of grinding it out. You put your heads down, you're working really hard, hustling all day, every day in order to build something. And he says, it feels like you're in this tunnel. You got your head down, you see a light at the end of the tunnel, and you think, if I just keep working toward that, someday I'm gonna get there and everything's gonna be great. Someday it's all gonna pay off. And he said, the only one that's keeping you in that tunnel is you. And you can step out of that anytime you want and start to experience the life that's happening around you. And at that point in my life, Josh, here I was in my mid to late 30s, and I had gone through school as a full-time employee, full-time student. I finished college, went on to get my MBA, again as a full-time employee at the same time. As soon as the MBA was done, started ClearSource with Rob. That took all my time. And so there I was, I found myself at this point in my life where I had done nothing but work in school for pretty much my whole life. And I went to that speech, and something clicked inside of me, and I said, I can step out of this tunnel anytime I want. And that was the moment that I went online and I bought my first bicycle. And the reason I picked a bicycle is because I remembered loving riding a bike as a kid. And I thought, how long has it been since I got on a bicycle and just had fun for the sake of having fun? And I got a bicycle, and I was supposed to assemble it myself, and I did a terrible job. I remember taking it to the bike shop, and as I walked in, I said, there's a problem with the bike. And the first thing they said was, well, it's because your fork's on backwards, And I thought, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. Help me out here.
I see.
Right?
I see.
But for me, it was just a step in that direction, and it opened up a whole new sport to me, cycling, that I've grown to love and that I spend a lot of time doing. I've done 3 200-mile bike races. And those are some of my most proud achievements and some of my things that I enjoy most doing. And if it wasn't for that one talk that I listened to, where he said, step out, right? And the funny thing is get this, the business became more successful as I adopted that approach than it was when I was just head down, grinding it out, hustling every day. And so I think when we start to prioritize our life, guess what? We become better at our work.
Wow, that's really profound. Makes me want to share my story. I'm gonna share it even though no one asked for it.
I want to hear it.
So I'm not gonna, I'm gonna admit, when I first started working here in ClearSource, it wasn't a complete shift for me. Like for the first 3 months, I would come here, work, and then go home, sleep it off, and then prepare for work the next day. It's all about that. I never really had time to see my friends as much as I wanted to, or see my family as much as I wanted to. The thing that shifted for me was, there's this band here in the Philippines called Ben and Ben. They're a 90s folk indie rock band. And, my God, I watched their online concert back in December, and it was seeing or hearing them play was like the moment that inspired me to just, pursue or start pursuing at least the things that I love or the things that I want to do in my life. Because music is one of the most profound things that I have in my life, and I never really pursued it out of fear or out of putting it off for something more important, which was work at the time. So that month I watched their online concert, and just seeing them play was a light in the hallway for me. And 2 months later, I bought my first ukulele.
Nice.
Yeah, I would usually play guitar, but I lost my guitar. We're not gonna talk about that. I lost my guitar, and I haven't had anything string related to play. I had a flute, but I wanted something more, so I bought a ukulele, and then I started, studying it, how to play it in different ways, different chord positions, different tunings, even though there's only 4 strings, so a lot of different tunings didn't really make sense. But, eventually I started playing the guitar again, this time with my cousin back in our home. I started playing the guitar again, and it's one of those moments where it was like, picking that up meant that I have my whole life ahead of me. It's not all about work. It's not all about business. It's one of those things where you just have. Sometimes you just have to do something that really keeps your mind off of it.
Yeah.
So my next question, and I know that you love, giving us the answers that we all deserve. What is your advice to people who, may be lost in finding that life balance or life prioritization thing? What would you say to people who have a hard time finding the time to do what they love or to see the people they love because they are so engrossed in their work that they think that once they take their eyes off of it, it's over?
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say to those people 2 things. Number 1, in order to create time and space in your very busy schedule to do more of the things that you love, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. What are the things that you're going to stop doing that are not adding value in order to have more time to do the stuff you love? Okay. The second thing I would say is try and think back. Usually as children, you're happy, you're playing, life is carefree. A lot of the things that you loved doing as a kid are things that you might still love doing today. Just in the example that I gave earlier about riding a bicycle, right?
Or me with music.
Absolutely. And so when you think about those things that you used to love doing that you haven't done forever, try and tap into that, right? Try and figure out what it was that you used to enjoy so much that you've not done. Pick it up again and see how it makes you feel. And if that doesn't work, maybe try some new things that you've never done before, right? Go around and ask people what they love to do. And not only are you going to make friends along the way, but you may pick up a new art or skill or talent or something like that that you enjoy doing. And so I think, again, it's stop doing the stuff that's not creating joy in your life and then start tapping into what were those things that you used to love doing that you haven't done in a long time.
I see. Thank you so much for all those words of wisdom.
Sure thing.
I'm curious though, you mentioned that, if doing the things that you love doesn't really work, you can always try. You can always take the time to try something new. Was there anything that you've always wanted to try but haven't yet had the chance?
So I would go back to this motorcycle trip that we just did. That was new for me. So if you go back to when I was, I think, 15 or 16 years old, I went and test drove a motorcycle and I wrecked it during the test drive. And so I had to buy it, but then I never fixed it. And so it just became scrap junk, right? Years later, here I am riding this motorcycle through Vietnam. And it was exhilarating.
I see.
And it made me want to go home and buy a motorcycle, right? So there I was tapping into something that I think I had wanted to do when I was a teenager, but never did because I had a terrible first experience with it. And so now I'm at this point in my life where I say, hey, it's not too late to start now.
It's not.
And identifying those things that maybe you've always wanted to do and just giving it a try and seeing what happens. And I'm fortunate to have someone like Rob who was able to introduce me to this wonderful activity. And as a result of that, it's something I would love to spend a lot more time doing.
I also have a motorcycle story. Back when I was 4, one of my neighbors had a motorcycle up front. I got on it, and I didn't know that if you get on it with the stand still on, eventually it'll tumble. So I nearly broke my leg.
Oh no.
Basically. So for a while, I was a bit afraid of motorcycles until I discovered, no, it's not a plug. I don't know if you've heard about, they're kind of motorcycle taxis here in the metro.
I have.
So yeah, that's basically the closest I've ever gotten to a motorcycle.
Okay.
I haven't driven one, but I want to. Yeah, that's one thing that I've always wanted to try. I've also wanted to try, cooking, but I guess fried rice is fine for me so far.
One of the cool things we got to do in Vietnam was do a cooking class.
Ooh.
And we made pho and spring rolls and stir-fried vegetables, and that was an amazing experience. And I think it's a cool way to introduce yourself to cooking if that's something that you think you'd like to do.
That's something I would want to do. Well, thank you so much, Nate, for being on our show. Talking about this really, how do I say this? Really put in the thought that, while people should work so that they can get the life that they want, it's not all about that, So I would say work within your limits, but don't be afraid to surpass them eventually. That's my takeaway from this. I want to hear your thoughts on on everything that we just talked about. What would you say?
Everything comes down to your choices. Everybody is trying to do the things in life that they think are going to make them happy. And I would say, if you're paying attention to how you feel as you do different things, and you might call this self-awareness or being present, right? What you'll start to do is identify that it doesn't take a lot of money to do things that give you joy, right?
That's good. Yeah.
And so it's really just a matter of what are you prioritizing? How do you spend your time? How do you stop doing the things that are not creating joy so that you can focus on those things that really make you happy? And as you're self-aware enough and start prioritizing those things, it's going to help you get where you want to go.
I see. Well, with everything that we talked about, do you have any more, I know that you are a bookworm yourself and you're also a cinemaphile. Is that a term? I think it is.
It is a term.
So, what movie or book recommendations would you have for people who would want to learn the Nate Spears way in achieving life balance overall?
That's a great question. I'm a really big fan of the books by Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote The Four Agreements. The one I've been reading most recently is called The Mastery of Love. His son, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., also wrote 2 books. One is called The Mastery of Self and The Mastery of Life. Those books have been eye-opening for me in terms of reevaluating how I live my life and stepping away from living a life of obligation to others, where you spend all your time people-pleasing, and instead saying, I'm going to go where I want to go, right? And I think for me, that's been a huge breakthrough because I spent a lot of my life in obligation, and now I'm living a life where I get to go where I want to go, and I think that that's amazing. As far as movies, I'm really into documentaries. There's some really great documentaries on Netflix. One just came out, is called How to Change Your Mind with Michael Pollan. I think that's a great documentary. There are others. Well, actually, I'll just get into movies for a second. I love fun movies, especially movies that pull at your heartstrings. So if you've seen the animated feature Inside, I think it's Inside Out, as well as I love La La Land. So if you're into musicals, those are some of my favorite shows. So I think for me, it's movies that make me feel something are the ones that I love most.
I see. The last book that I read was The Hunger Games.
Okay.
So I think it's a pretty different.
I read all the Hunger Games books and I loved them more than the movies. I thought the books were amazing.
Amazing, right? Amazing. They omitted a lot of stuff
They
from
did.
the books, as a movie would usually do.
That's right.
Anyways, again, thank you so much, Nate, for being on our show. I hope you had a fun time, even though a lot of the things that we talked about here were very unplanned.
Okay. Yeah. No, Josh, I want to say thank you so much for having me on. It was a wonderful opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. I loved your stories and the chance to share some things that are important to me with our wonderful people at ClearSource.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And to all of you guys watching and to all of you guys listening, thank you so much for tuning into the show, watching and laughing with us, even though you don't know exactly what's going on here. Seriously, it's a lot. It's chaotic, but it's a good kind of chaotic. As usual, if you guys want to watch more episodes, be sure to follow us on our socials, YouTube, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. And since this is our season finale, I just want to say again, thank you so much for tuning into our show, even though I already said that exact same phrase just now. But thank you so much for, entertaining us with your presence. And rest assured, for next season, you will see more and we will give you more. Again, this is Joshua Bautista, and this has been the Logout Sessions!
Hey guys, did you love this episode of Logout Sessions as much as I did? If you want to see more, click right here for more episodes, and then click down here to like and subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode of Logout Sessions.